Hey everyone, it's Nick at HouseIt. So today I was Googling tips for buying an apartment in New York City, and I was shocked to read the first article that came up in Google, which had a bunch of chat GPT outsourced type of content, which is completely useless. For example, it was telling me that one of the most important tips is to go to open houses. Really? It was telling me that I should make a checklist of things that I want to see in a home. It was telling me that I should research neighborhoods I might be interested in. I'm sorry, but you're going to need a lot more than filler content to actually enhance your home buying search here in New York City. So we're making this video today, and we're going to give you 5 non-obvious tips for buying a property in New York City. Now, keep in mind, we can save you money here at HouseIt through a commission rebate. If you're buying in New York City, it's a great way to lower your closing costs. You can learn more and sign up by visiting housit.com, and also check out our closing cost calculator for buyers. It is completely free for you to use. The link is below in the description. So let's go ahead and get started. So tip number 1 for buying a property in New York City is to make sure that you're thinking 3 to 5 years out. What do we mean by this? Well, essentially, you want to make sure that you're not in a position where you have to sell within a few years of buying. Buyer closing costs are anywhere from 1.5% to 6%, and seller closing costs are anywhere from 8 to 10%. So if you add all that up, you could potentially need up to 16% in appreciation just for you to break even. So if you're buying a property right now and you're thinking about having another child, are you going to come to us a year from now and be desperate to sell because the place is too small? If so, do not buy that property. Perhaps rent or just buy a larger apartment. Similarly, if you're potentially going to be transferred to London for your job for a few years, then you shouldn't buy a co-op, because if you buy a co-op, you have limitations on how often you can sublet. So if your stay in London starts to exceed a number of years, you could potentially be prohibited from subletting any further, and then you will essentially be forced to sell your co-op. Otherwise, you'll have to pay your maintenance to basically keep an empty apartment until you dispose of the property. The second tip for buying a property in New York City is to make sure you fully understand closing costs. No, not just that they're high, but how they vary from property type to property type. For example, if you buy a co-op, your buyer closing costs are going to be on the lower end. They can be around 1.5%, 2%. If you buy a condo, they can be around 4%. But if you are paying all cash for the condo, they'll be a little bit lower than 4%. And then on the more extreme end, you have a new development condo where the closing costs can be, up to 6%. So just make sure that you really understand what sort of closing costs you're going to be on the hook for, and how does that play into your degree of comfort as far as your emergency cash reserve, essentially your financial situation after you close. The third tip for buying in New York City is to think about affordability. By this, we don't just mean getting a pre-approval letter and pointing to the number where it says your maximum purchase price is. We mean, how comfortable will you feel when you wake up on the first of the month and you see whatever your payment amount is disappearing from your bank account? So if you can afford a $15,000 a month property, but you are in a very risky industry, maybe you're just a single individual, you're an investment banker, would you feel comfortable having to pay $15,000 a month essentially indefinitely, and then finding out that you got laid off? Would you feel comfortable potentially not having a job for 6 months and having to pay $15,000 a month? That is what we mean by affordability. Even if you can afford something, it doesn't mean that you will be comfortable with it, and you obviously do not want to do anything, get into any situation where you have inherent anxiety as a result of your monthly obligations in terms of your payments. Another related aspect of this point is to make sure that you feel comfortable with how easy or how difficult it might be for you to get out of a property. And by get out, we don't just mean sell. We mean, let's say you no longer want to be an investment banker, and when you get laid off, you want to do something else. You want to sell hairbrushes on Amazon. So at that point, are you comfortable paying that $15K a month? Or perhaps you want to rent it out. So if you're in a co-op, how difficult is it to rent it? Is your board really strict? Some co-ops charge a hefty fee, basically a penalty like a tax if you want to sublet. So that will naturally increase your anxiety levels as you try to change careers. So ideally, you have a condo in that scenario if you think you may be changing careers, or better yet, you're in a townhouse where you essentially have little to no restrictions on essentially how quickly or how you want to rent out your property. A fourth tip for buying a home in New York City is to think about property type. And by this, we don't mean condo or co-op. We have a separate video about this. The link is above. But for this particular point, we want you to understand the difference between living in a small building or a large building. If you're in a small building, for example, It can feel pretty much the same on a day-to-day basis, whether you're in a condo or a co-op. Are you comfortable having a group text with all of your neighbors and knowing that you could get a text message at 3 a.m. in the morning whenever somebody's angry about something? Do you prefer that degree of intimacy? Or do you want to live in a bigger building where it's a lot more anonymous? You don't see the same people going in and out of the building. Most communication comes from management, and very rarely would you ever receive some sort of alarming message directly from a neighbor. So think very carefully, not just about condo versus co-op by watching our video, but also about the size of the building that you are thinking about buying into. The fifth and final tip for buying a home in New York City is to make sure you're comfortable with the scope of potential renovations. By this we mean, if, for example, you're buying a property that needs a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, just know that over time, that type of work will essentially consume some portion of your free time. So if you're the kind of person where you have a fully committed social schedule and you simply just don't have the ability to just take half of your Saturday for the next 4 months to think about how to renovate your property, then you shouldn't buy a home that is not turnkey. So naturally, this means maybe you want to consider new developments. But are you comfortable with the fact that new developments typically have top tier pricing? You're going to pay the most amount of money for those properties. And then on the flip side, you have a home that's so nice. Are you worried about damaging stuff? So make sure that you fully understand the degree of time commitment required for however much work your home may need, or on the flip side, whether you're actually comfortable paying a premium for something that's turnkey and then getting anxious about every time someone comes in and potentially scuffs your floor with one of their shoes. So we hope you found these tips to be useful and helpful. If we missed anything, let us know below by leaving a comment. And remember, we can save you money on your purchase through a commission rebate. You can learn more and sign up by visiting houseit.com. Give me a call anytime. I'd love to chat further. And thanks again for watching.